Here's a mistake I see hardworking Americans make all the time, and it quietly costs them a fortune. They pour every retirement dollar they have into one account, usually a traditional 401k, pat themselves on the back, and figure they're all set. And look, saving is great, but putting everything in one type of account is like building a house with only one door. It works, until the day you really wish you had another way out. Because here's what wealthy, tax-savvy Americans actually do. They don't keep all their money in one bucket. They spread it across 3 different types of accounts, and that gives them something almost nobody else has in retirement: total control over their own tax bill. Today, I'm going to show you the 3 buckets, why having all 3 is a genuine secret weapon, and exactly how to use them. First, let me show you why one account is a trap. Say you did the normal thing and put everything into a traditional 401k. Every single dollar you saved got a tax break going in, which felt great. But here's the catch nobody mentions. Every single dollar you pull out in retirement is taxed as ordinary income. All of it. And it gets worse, because once you hit your 70s, the government forces you to start withdrawing whether you need the money or not. Those are called required minimum distributions, and they can shove you into a higher tax bracket, jack up the cost of your Medicare, and make more of your Social Security taxable all at once. When everything's in that one bucket, you have zero control. The IRS decides how much comes out and how hard it gets taxed. That is not the position you want to be in. So let's fix it with the 3 buckets. Bucket number 1 is the tax-deferred bucket. This is your traditional 401k and traditional IRA. You get a tax deduction today, your money grows without being taxed along the way, and you pay ordinary income tax when you pull it out in retirement. This bucket is genuinely useful, especially in your high earning years when cutting this year's tax bill really matters. But understand what it really is. It's a tax me later account. You and the IRS are partners in it, and they'll collect their share eventually. So it's a great bucket to have, but a terrible bucket to be the only one you own. Bucket number 2 is the tax-free bucket, and this one is gold. This is your Roth, the Roth IRA, and the Roth 401k. You pay the tax now on the way in, and then it is done forever. The money grows tax-free, and every qualified dollar you withdraw in retirement is completely tax-free. No tax on the growth, no tax on the withdrawal. And here's the part that makes it a secret weapon. Money you pull from a Roth doesn't count as income for those nasty thresholds we just talked about. It won't push up your Medicare premiums, it won't make your Social Security taxable, and there are no forced withdrawals on a Roth IRA in your lifetime. This is the bucket that gives you flexibility when you need it most. If most of your retirement savings is not in this bucket, you are leaving one of the most powerful tools in America sitting on the table. Bucket number 3 is the taxable bucket. This is just a regular brokerage account, and people forget it entirely because it doesn't come with a fancy tax break up front. But do not sleep on it, because it's the most flexible bucket you've got. There are no contribution limits, no early withdrawal penalties, and you can pull money out anytime, at any age, for any reason. On top of that, when you sell investments you've held over a year, you're taxed at the lower long-term capital gains rates, not ordinary income rates. And if you pass these investments to your kids, they can get what's called a step up in basis, which can wipe out a huge amount of the tax owed. So this bucket is your bridge, your emergency flexibility, and a smart way to pass on wealth. And by the way, there's a bonus bucket, the health savings account, or HSA, which is arguably the best of all. Money goes in with a tax break, grows tax-free, and comes out tax-free for medical costs. If you have access to one, use it. Now here's the whole point. The payoff that ties it all together. When you have money in all 3 buckets, you get a tax dial in retirement. You get to choose where every dollar comes from, and that changes everything. Let me make it concrete. Picture 2 retirees who both need, say, $80,000 to live on this year. The first one has everything in a traditional 401k. All $80,000 comes out as taxable income, pushing them up the brackets, taxing their Social Security, and maybe spiking their Medicare premiums. They have no choices. The second retiree has all 3 buckets. They can pull some from the taxable account taxed at low capital gains rates, some from the traditional account just up to the top of a low tax bracket, and then top the rest off tax-free from their Roth. Same $80,000 in their pocket, but a dramatically smaller tax bill, and they stayed under the thresholds that trigger the Medicare and Social Security traps. That difference, repeated every year for a 30-year retirement, can add up to well over $100,000 kept instead of paid. Same savings, completely different outcome. That is the power of the buckets. And notice what that second retiree is really doing, because this is the whole trick. In America, your income is taxed in layers. The first chunk is taxed at 0 or very low rates, and each layer above it costs you more. The person with 3 buckets deliberately fills up those cheap lower layers with taxable and tax-deferred money. And then, the moment the next dollar would land in an expensive layer, they switch the tap to their tax-free Roth bucket, where it costs them nothing and doesn't even show up as income. The person with 1 bucket has no tap to switch. They blow straight through the cheap layers into the pricey ones with no breaks at all every single year. Having the buckets is what lets you tap the brakes exactly when you want to. That is control, and in retirement, control is worth a fortune. And the buckets unlock even more moves. In the low income years, say you retire early before Social Security and those forced withdrawals kick in, you can do something called a Roth conversion, deliberately moving money from your tax-deferred bucket to your tax-free bucket, while your tax rate is low, which shrinks those future forced withdrawals and the tax bomb that comes with them. When the market crashes, instead of being forced to sell your stocks at the bottom, you can live off your taxable or cash bucket and leave your investments alone to recover. And when you're gone, the tax-free bucket is one of the best things you can possibly leave to your family. None of this is available to the person who put everything in one account. Options are the whole game, and the buckets are what give you options. So how do you actually build all 3? Here's the simple order. First, if your job offers a 401k match, grab every dollar of it. That's free money and it goes in your tax-deferred bucket. Second, start filling your tax-free bucket, contribute to a Roth IRA, or flip on the Roth option inside your 401k. Third, once those are humming, anything extra goes into a taxable brokerage account for pure flexibility. And here's the key insight for most people watching. You're probably heavily loaded in just one bucket right now. Almost certainly the tax-deferred one, because that's what a typical American workplace 401k quietly funnels everyone into for decades. You don't need to blow it up. You just need to start feeding the buckets you're light on, starting today. Redirect some of your new contributions into the Roth option. Open a brokerage account for anything above your tax advantage limits, and over the years, your buckets slowly come into balance. Even if you're close to retirement, adding a Roth and a taxable account to the mix gives you options you'll be grateful for later. And if you're already retired and sitting almost entirely in tax-deferred money, this is exactly where those low income years before your forced withdrawals become golden. Because you can convert some of it to the tax-free bucket a bit at a time while your rate is low. Balance across the 3 is the goal, and it is almost never too late to start moving toward it. So let me bring it home. Do not keep all your retirement money in one account. That one door leaves you at the mercy of the IRS. Build 3 buckets instead: tax-deferred for the break today, tax-free for the flexibility and protection tomorrow, and taxable for pure freedom. Do that, and in retirement, you hold the tax dial, you decide where your money comes from, you keep your Medicare cheap and your Social Security protected, and you hand the IRS far less over your lifetime. This is exactly what wealthy Americans do. And there is nothing stopping you from doing the very same thing, starting with your next paycheck. And since these rules and numbers change, do check the current figures before you act. If this opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you there.